team, with your offense, how much just kind of everything changed once you get to this point with Allar?
Well, what's really good is that you actually, there's one thing to talk about things in installations and show them film of other people or years past, last fall here, but then they get to see themselves doing it. So what happens for them is everything gets a little more real. The self-reflection really amps up and increases. And typically, this is true of football, and I really believe this as a teacher, we all need to make mistakes, and so when you go out here, there's mistakes that happen, and then there's corrections that occur, and they're the ones making the mistake, you know what I mean? Or learning perhaps from someone else that they saw and observed. So it's real, it's football.
We talked to Drew a few weeks ago, and he said two things. One, you give pop quizzes, and two, you're asking the quarterbacks for their feedback on what you guys are doing. Could you tell me about both of those aspects?
Well, one, when you talk about quizzes, to me, any kind of quiz, when he's pop quiz, he's probably talking about maybe being in a meeting and there's some sort of call out. I think I've said this before, but I got into this to teach and coach. And so I want to stay on the cutting edge of anything that we're doing in terms of teaching. So when we talk about any kind of quiz, either in person or maybe on paper or online, it's going to have to do with, checking for understanding, right? Having them recite it back instead of just lecturing to them. I don't think people learn that way very well. And then the second part of your question about feedback, I always want to ask and engage guys what they see, what they do, what they think. One thing that's really prevalent, I think, nowadays is everyone's access to information. And you could go online. I was at a coaching clinic here recently, and I said, if you want to learn about how to coach receivers better, all you got to do is get on YouTube, right, or Google and type it, and you could watch thousands of hours of coaching clinic film on how to coach wide receivers. And our kids are exposed to that. So they have thoughts, they have knowledge, and I want to see what they know and what they think, right? Because I don't want to just tell them, right, what we're going to do. I want them to understand why we're doing things. I want them to understand what we're going to be doing, and then kind of piece together the how with them, if that makes sense.
James was saying that it's the why that's important, and telling these guys why you're doing stuff. Can you talk about what that's like?
Yeah, okay, well there's three things that are really important when you're trying to get people to do something, like an objective. It's what, it's how, it's why, right? And a lot of times what's really you want to do as a coach, you want to spend a lot of time on the how, which is really important. So none of those stages is least important than the other. But if you don't start with why, and you don't start with what, if you don't start with those two things, the how gets lost.
Get Sal Wormley all the way down.
If that makes an understanding of the thing. So we want to make sure everything that we're doing, that you are explaining why we're doing those things. Everything from drilling into practice, to a scheme, to a technique, whatever, why are we doing these sort of things? And if you were to ask me 15 years ago, or maybe ask me today, what's different today than when I was coaching 15 years ago? I think me personally, and I'm a lot of coaches who are doing a good job, I would tell you, I bet they say that they do a much better job of explaining why they do what they do to their students.
Andy, you mentioned lots of information being out there on the internet. Going back to your time in Buffalo, you've used outside zone quite a bit in your run game. Why is that important to what you've done?
Well, I think when you talk about zone schemes in general, albeit inside, outside, medium, mid-zone, you want to have I've used the word distortion, I think, before in press conferences, and that's a good play that's going to create a lot of natural distortion, for our run scheme and our running back. So you always want to have balance in how you're going to run the ball, but having that play and running that play is something that not everyone does. So we want to make sure that we know that our investment in that play is going to pay off, and we are investing in that play.
James said that the offense is really emotionally invested. How did you kind of rally the group around and guide it?
Well, I think it starts with getting them to understand. You guys asked the question of why. Here's why we're doing these things. I think I also spent time talking to them all one-on-one and asking them what do they want from their offensive core, and what do they want from their offense. What do they want their offense to look like? And making sure that they understood. And there's a lot of consistencies there when you ask people, what does you want it to look like? And showing them, these are the things you want it to be. So let's go be these things. And we can't just talk about being enthusiastic. We can't just talk about being physical. We can't just talk about trying to be explosive, right? Or be on the same page, or all the things that we said. We have to go out there and do that. We have to be very intentional about doing those things. And I think, aside from what myself and the rest of the staff are doing on offense, the players are buying in because they are yearning to win, to perform at a high level. So it's got as much of them to want to go out there and succeed at a high level as anything.
What did they say they want? You said, tell me what
those meaning some of those things I just said. Some of like they want to be explosive. They want to be enthusiastic. They want to be confident in what they're doing, right? Okay. And I said, what do you think we need? And those are some of the terms of the physical, right? And there's a long list of things will come up, but some of those are the first ones that pop in my head at least.
What have you learned about?
Came under a lot of scrutiny last year. How do you assess where they're at right now and how they're fitting into your offense?
I think they're progressing really, really well right now. I'm very pleased with that group. I said this after being here. I think that's a position group that's going to surprise some people because no one's going to talk about them. And I think they wear that chip on their shoulder, actually, right? And everyone's going to kind of point the finger at them, and right or wrong, that's what it is. And they're like, we'll show you. You know, I mean, I believe that they have that chip on their shoulder about it, and I do think that group's going to surprise some people. They have committed themselves to improving daily, and it's very evident. And we've challenged them physically and mentally more than they've had, at least according to their feedback. And they're responding super well. We're making it hard on them, and they're really digging into it and doing a good job.
What have you learned about Drew through 4 or 5 practices and whatever room work you did with him prior to that?
So I would tell you the first thing is his yearning to improve all the time. Like he's really, really good about trying to, okay, this happened, why? You know what I mean? This bad play occurred, why did this happen? This good thing happened, okay, why? So he is always seeking feedback, right? You know what I mean? To improve himself, and I think that's really important. I've said this before, and I don't know if maybe with you guys, but being a college football player, you're going to be criticized a lot publicly, but then you're going to get a lot of critiques from your coaches and how to improve and what you're doing. But what we're trying to get guys to do, and Drew kind of embodies this, and this is what I'm talking about, is we want our players to learn how to self-reflect. And if you can get done, and if you can learn to do that, in my estimation, and this is not scientific, I think that makes you better than 97% of the people out there. Because 97% of the population has never looked in the mirror and said, this is what I need to improve on. And he embodies the idea of looking in the mirror, taking ownership, good or bad, and growing and improving.
Andy, with Beau specifically, you used some 2 quarterback sets before last year with his role, chipping in, coming off the bench, being a spark with some of those different sets. Is that something you see carrying over into next season, or do you kind of want to see it?
Well, one of the objectives that we have this spring as a staff and within the players to really understand what the players' capabilities and limitations are and be able to build around them. And I mean this, any player that can help us win games on our offense, we will find a way to utilize them. If we got 8 O-linemen that are going to help us win a game, we'll put them out there at the same time. If we got 8 running backs, we'll find a way to put them on the field. You can't do that, that's illegal. But but like, you get what I'm saying? I mean that. Like, we'll be as creative and unique as necessary to utilize our players.
Coach, seeing people on tape and seeing how they play on tape is very different than seeing them in person. Has any specific player done something that you maybe didn't expect because you didn't see it on tape in your style?
Ooh, I don't know if I could give you a specific one. Okay, but I have been, and every day since winter workouts to now, I've been really impressed with the players, even just collectively as a team, and their willingness to compete, to fight, to take, sacrifice their own time to work ahead with installations and things and being engaged. I can't isolate a guy and say, hey, he's doing this, but I can tell you collectively I've been really impressed with everybody, very impressed.
We've seen the quarterbacks go through ball security drills with the rest of the eligible receivers the last 2 practices we've been at, and that's something we didn't see last season. Is that something that you brought here, or is that something just the staff decided needed to be done?
Well, it's something, Coach Franklin and I have the same thoughts about ball security. It's really, really important. If you touch the ball or you have the ability to carry the ball at some point, which our quarterbacks will do, everyone's going to learn how to take care of the football the right way. So they've done ball security in the past with those spots, but they maybe done different drills, but we're putting right in there. We want everyone, one of our spring objectives, develop ball carriers, develop ball carriers, develop ball carriers.
What's it been like? Guys.
James talks a lot about that head coach offense. Can you explain what that means from your point of view?
Really good question. I would tell you, first of all, taking ownership for everything that's occurring. Right, and this is, as I've grown in my 19 years now calling plays, I've learned to again, talking about teaching and coaching, if something happens that's not good for us on offense, a drop pass or whatever, a missed block, I don't blame the player right away anymore. I did probably when I first started coaching. I really look at myself and say, we need to drill that one. Or I had the wrong guy in the field at that time. And I would really believe in development, which what Coach Frank talks about. So going out there and being accountable for what that group is, staff and players, I believe is what he is looking for, I think, from that position.
What's it been like recruiting with that Penn State logo on your jacket or sweatshirt or whatever you're wearing?
Well, as you guys know, I mean, it's a national brand. Everyone knows it. They know that this has been one of the best football programs, you know, historically for a long time. This place, this fan base, it does speak for itself. But at the end of the day, I think you can't get stuck in a situation where you're trying to just allow the logo to do it for you, because at the end of the day, we're in a people business, and I think when players and recruits come here, I think they'll get a real quick observation of we're very genuine and sincere from the head coach down. You know, it's an awesome place, but I think people would choose to come here because of the people that are here wearing that brand, as you say.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.